was granted exclusive access to join America's crackdown on illegal migration, riding with the guys at ICE, the Immigration Control, as they arrested 8 illegal migrants and, at the end of the day, the bonus, a cocaine trafficker. Tonight, I'll bring you an extended report from that raid with new unseen footage.
And national security is not just about defence spending, important though that is. It's also about food security, it's about energy security, it's about industrial security. And this family farm tax is completely undermining our food security.
Breaking tonight, GB News can reveal that 6 in 10 farmers in Britain say they consider their farm to be at financial risk and close to closure. Is it time to follow President Trump's lead this side of the pond and ditch the death tax?
We were losing a lot of farms. They go out and borrow money to pay the estate tax or the death tax, as it's called.
We'll also be getting stuck into tomorrow's front pages hours before they hit the shelves and breaking the news before it comes news. And of course, we're live in Washington, D.C., just yards from the White House, bringing you the stories America's talking about and that matter to you in Britain too, including this one.
The US government has just released thousands of once secret CIA files.
I believe there is a government cover-up. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
Who really killed JFK? Do you believe the story, the narrative? Because GB News has been investigating the assassination of the former president. What we've uncovered, well, Steve Edgington at least, and the people he's spoken to, could leave you questioning everything you thought you knew.
Hopefully he'll become reasonable, and hopefully Zelensky will be reasonable too. You know, it takes 2 to tango, as they say.
Could Ukraine be on the brink of peace? Because the US is now stepping in directly, sending officials to try and seal the deal. But is this a breakthrough or just yet another gamble that could badly go wrong? And more breaking news tonight here from DC. At least 2 people are receiving medical treatment after a fire was reported in the underground trolley system. It's basically a tunnel connecting the US Capitol buildings and the Rayburn House buildings right here in the Capitol. I'm Ben Leo. This is The Late Show Live. Let's do this. Hello, good evening to you. Hope you're well. A broadcast exclusive for you now. The BBC's been accused of anti-Trump bias again, this time over the persecution of Nigerian Christians. A top doctor in the West African nation who's treated victims of jihadist violence has now written to Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy and the chair of the Culture, Media and Sport Committee, accusing the corporation of systematic underreporting and misframing of killings. Long story short, they're poo-pooing the persecution of Christians, allegedly. He's also accusing the BBC of having an institutional dislike of the US president, which he claims has skewed the BBC's output. And it follows, of course, the Trump administration threatening Nigeria with sanctions if it fails to deal with the persecution of those Christians.
The Trump administration is developing a plan to incentivize and compel the Nigerian government to better protect Christian communities and improve religious freedom. This plan will consider U.S. state and Treasury engagement on sanctions, as well as possible Department of War engagement on counterterrorism and other efforts to protect religious communities.
Live now exclusively on GB News is the man behind that letter, behind this action, Dr. Nwango Courage from Nigeria. Dr. Courage, thank you for your company and your time on this. You've written to the UK government, our Culture Secretary, highlighting the BBC's anti-Trump bias. Just explain what you've seen to make that conclusion, and have you heard back yet from our Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy?
Hi, thank you for having me. Great pleasure to be here. First to say that the title of my letter wasn't primarily about Trump. It's more about my country and about the killings that's happening in Nigeria, particularly where I live in north-central Nigeria. So my concern is that the BBC, the way they frame these stories, the language that they use, kind of reduce the impact, of what's happening in north-central Nigeria. So, and that's very concerning to me. However, given the recent pronouncement by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and then the way that is led into this whole narrative, further showed to me that they really don't care about what's happening, to the Nigerian people. They are more interested in their own narrative.
So you're a fellow of the Royal College of Physicians. You've cited one BBC article in particular which you claim uses vocabulary that makes the events in Nigeria appear as neutral or generic insecurity rather than attacks specifically towards Christians. And even on Wednesday, Doctor, there was an article on the BBC website with the headline, "Contested Trump Claim, Christians being persecuted in Nigeria." So why does the BBC think the mass slaughter and execution of Christians is contested?
It's very difficult to understand. If I can cite to you some of the things that was written in that article, they describe the jihadists, Boko Haram and Islamic State, West Africa, having carried out a lot of havoc in northeast Nigeria. And they said most of the people killed there, are Muslims. But they now said, but for central Nigeria, there are often clashes between mostly Muslim herders and farming groups who are often Christians over access to water and pasture. And that's very, deceptive to say the least. Because, for instance, in the capital city of Jos, there's no such thing as farming. It's a metropolitan city. So that's where I live. And you have, people throwing bombs into churches, entering into people's communities and, destroying the beliefs and killing so many people. There was nobody, farming. There was no header splash. There was nothing like that. So for you to, frame that kind of activity and said it's about Muslim herders and farming groups, it just doesn't make sense. And, so the more you think about it, the more you realize that if this is not about narrative, then it must be a deliberate attempt at deceiving, the readers and the listeners or the viewers of BBC.
So there's a report from the International Society for Civil Liberties and Rule of Law which has shown or concluded that since 2009, 125,000 Christians have been killed in Nigeria and more than 19,000 churches destroyed, burnt down. Can I ask you, you've treated lots of these Christians who have been subject to this violence. Who is responsible for the violence, Doctor? Who's attacking and killing these Christians?
So what we know, as is very clearly, is that they are jihadists. The Boko Haram, it's a very popular group in Nigeria now, and then the Islamic State people. So we have all of those armed groups that are well recognized. And that's why I'm really concerned, that these people, you know what they are doing, and you have suicide bombers, who are affiliated to these people, and yet you say, oh, they are just farmers and herders. Do farmers carry out suicide bombing? Do herders carry out suicide bombing? I really can't, get it, and that's why the language that the BBC use, it's very concerning to me. So when you have people worshiping on Sunday morning, in church, and then somebody drives into that church, and the bomb exploded. Who were the farmers? Who were the herders? And meanwhile, none of those people have farms. None of those people have livestock. They are, professors, academics, government workers. So where does herders and farming group clash come into that kind of situation that becomes the narrative that the BBC is driving? And then this is a lot of circles of tit for tat attacks and all of that. It's very disturbing because that is so far, from the truth. And, yes, of course, we were, like I wrote in the letter, in recent years, now we are having a lot of attacks happening, in the outskirts. And so we are seeing people coming in, from those areas. But we do know, especially in North Central, that these are disproportionately Christian communities, and it's becoming clearer now because you now have almost a very clear demarcation in areas occupied by Christians and areas occupied by Muslims, which was not the case before. And we all used to live together, and all of that
and Doctor,
has changed because of this crisis.
Yeah, sorry to interject. I've seen the videos online. I've seen people being buried alive. I've seen people lined up in the street and executed in Nigeria. You just told then about church congregations on Sunday mornings being invaded by Islamists and suicide bombers. And you've just said then, I mean, it's a pretty bombshell claim to make that you think the BBC is driving this narrative and trying to downplay it. I think you told one newspaper the institutional dislike of the US president should never be allowed to obscure the religious motivated murders, rapes and beatings. So you think that the BBC, in their utter, I guess we call it Trump derangement syndrome, TDS, in their utter dislike for President Trump, they are turning a blind eye and trying to downplay what's happening in your country. Dr. Ilmango, thank you for your company tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, and take care. gbnews.com/your say. Let me know your thoughts on that. Joining me live now in Washington is my panel for tonight, the former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, and the Democrat strategist Richard Goodstein, who's making his debut in studio, at least, on GB News. Welcome along, Richard. Your thoughts about this? The BBC just seems to be completely under the cosh. Do they have Trump derangement syndrome? Are they making their dislike of the president skew their reporting on other separate news items?
Let's just step back for a second as far as Trump's embrace of Christianity. You'll admit there's some irony. Just look at the 10 Commandments and all the ones that he has violated. You know, you'll be goddamn poor if you don't vote for me, taking the Lord's name in vain. How about, coveting your neighbor's wife? How about adultery? And the list goes on. So it's a bit rich to see Donald Trump as this...
We are imperfect, Richard.
As this... Well, okay, but you can't go down the list. I suspect there are not many people you know who would have like a 10 for 10 score. Let me just say one other thing. We now have 15,000 troops trying to kind of blow out of the water a boat here and there in Venezuela, a boat that never has a prayer of reaching the United States. If Trump cared all that much about these jihadists, and he should, incidentally, what's happening is horrible, then he could deploy people to keep those killings from happening. And they're happening not just in Nigeria, they're happening elsewhere in Africa as the U.S. has withdrawn foreign aid. Guess who's stepping into the vacuum? Jihadists. So this obviously has been happening long before Trump started withdrawing foreign aid. All I'm saying is it's not a coincidence that this is on the uptick ever since the U.S. has basically said, oh, we're out of this whole foreign aid business. Africa, go, suit yourself. And the jihadists, their attitude is, thanks so much.
Well, I don't think you can blame the abolition of USAID. I mean, 125,000 Christians have been executed in Nigeria since 2009. I guess when USAID was being milked for the gravy train that it was. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I don't think you can draw any parallels with the withdrawal of US aid to Africa with mass killing, mass slaughter by jihadists. And President Trump is 100% right to condemn what's happening in Nigeria. We do need to see an end to this slaughter. This is barbarism and savagery on an epic scale. I'm also very glad that President Trump is taking out the drug cartels who are operating in countries like Venezuela, for example, who are costing American lives every day. And
what about the BBC? Again, they're embroiled in a bias
absolutely
scandal.
Outrageous from the BBC, actually. It's appalling, once again. Their coverage of this hugely important issue has been skewed, of course, by anti-Trump bias. And I think it's an absolute outrage.
Yeah, again, the doctor who joined us, he had said earlier today the institutional dislike of the US president should never be allowed to obscure the religious motivated murders, rapes and beatings. I quite frankly can't believe the BBC, even on Wednesday, published an article with the headline, "Contested Trump claim Christians are being persecuted in Nigeria." A contested Trump claim. It's not a Trump claim, it's fact. Go on X. I mean, BBC Verify has a budget of 40 million quid a year, 60 odd staff, more staff than I'd ever enjoy on this kind of show, and they can't even verify that Christians are being slaughtered and executed in Nigeria. Give me a break. We're in response to the story. GB News has approached the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, but are yet to hear back. But on the same issue, a BBC spokesman has said BBC News has covered the violence in Nigeria across its coverage, highlighting the deaths and devastating impacts on people and making clear any religious identification, including Christian, where we have robust evidence. The coverage includes analysis and information from a range of NGOs, security and intelligence experts. We've included the claims of anti-Christian violence and rigorously fact-checked using a range of data sources, maybe BBC Verify. We'll continue to report on the area and welcome feedback and testimony. Right. Let us know what you think on that. gbnews.com/your say. And by the way, there's a brand new way to take part in the conversation by becoming a friend of GB News for free. Take a look.
Join the community and be part of our shows by becoming a friend of GB News. Get a direct line to join the conversations that you hear us talking about every day in our programmes by commenting on Your Say and voting in You Decide polls. Access opinion, analysis and behind-the-scenes videos as we share more from the stories that you see on TV and radio. Plus, watch our shows live and on catch-up anywhere, anytime. If you love our channel, become a friend of GB News for free by scanning the QR code or going to gbnews.com/friend. Don't just watch our programmes, come and be a part of them.
Still ahead tonight on The Late Show Live.
The family farm should not be driven out of existence.
I don't know where they think we're going to get our food from. 6 in 10 farms are now at risk of financial ruin. So why isn't the UK looking to America and scrapping the death tax like they did here? But also tonight.
You are way behind the
I don't see
times.
any difference.
You don't? Well, then I think you're extraordinarily unkind.
I think you're very dangerous, and actually I'd say borderline evil. That explosive interview with Dr. Helen Weberly on Sunday on this very show in this studio. By the way, that's had more than 10 million views on all GB News platforms all over the world. 10 million, it's been insane. The prescription she's pushing of puberty blockers to children. The Trump administration over here has just released a massive bombshell report, peer-reviewed study on the effects of puberty blockers and cross hormones. You do not want to miss it. And by the way, Helen Weberly is still doing the rounds here in America. She's setting up camp targeting American kids. We're getting stuck into that next.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
My 2-year-old son came up to me the other day. I went back home to the UK, and he said, "Daddy, I'm going to have a baby." And I said, "Zach, you can't have a baby because you're a boy. You're a man. You can't have babies." And he said, "Well, I'm going to be a girl. I want to be a girl." What would you have said to him if you were me?
Well, I wouldn't have said, Zach, you're a boy and boys can't have babies, because that's absolutely not true. So, I mean, I don't know what your parenting is like.
And you don't think think boys can have babies?
You mean males?
Yes.
Yes.
You think males? Sorry, you think males can have babies?
Yes.
Right. So you're happy prescribing 9-year-old children with
the alternative,
with puberty blockers, cross hormones.
Puberty blockers are the best time for puberty blockers is when puberty starts.
She called me a bad parent on Twitter over the past 48 hours, believe it or not. Welcome back to The Late Show Live. I'm Ben Leo. That, of course, was my rather explosive interview with Dr. Helen Weberly, who is the founder of online transgender clinic GenderGP.com. She's setting up camp here in America. She's going after American kids. She defended the controversial use, of course, of drugs and whatever else, puberty blockers for children as young as 9. Following that interview on Sunday, the Trump administration, this side of the pond, has released a brand new peer-reviewed study showing that puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones and surgical procedures on children pose significant long-term harm to kids that have been, quote, ignored or poorly tracked by mainstream medicine. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the US Secretary of State for Health and Human Services, says the treatments have caused lasting physical and psychological damage to vulnerable young people. However, many major medical organisations have since hit out at the report in disagreement, with the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Paediatrics and the Endocrine Society, saying gender-affirming care, i.e. care for kids, trans kids, when done properly, is apparently safe. Well, joining me in the studio to discuss this is Republican strategist Colin Reid. Colin, good evening. Thanks for your company.
Great to be here, Ben. Try to live up to the fireworks of that previous interview.
Oh, with President Trump?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that one.
That
Sorry.
one, yeah.
Oh, yeah. She was crackers. But the concerning thing is, Colin, she's now doing the rounds outside the White House, putting out social media videos saying, "I'm in America, I'm in Washington, D.C. American kids, if you want puberty blockers, if you want cross hormones, come to my website, £30 a month, £200 subscription fee." She's coming after your kids now.
Well, this is an issue that was largely litigated over here, the broader issue in the presidential campaign when Donald Trump ran that famous ad saying that Kamala Harris is for they, them, and I'm for you. And so that issue spoke to the broader trans issue. This one is even more narrow because it's about children. And that's where I think you really start to see people get concerned, because it's going to have impact on people who don't have the ability to make those kind of decisions. But look, this report, Ben, we've seen this with other reports. This is peer-reviewed. This has liberals on it by all their accounts, and the people are assailing the report. But remember, 4 years ago, the science is settled. When you're talking about climate change ending the world, you're talking about the COVID shot and all things like that. So science is only settled when the science supports the left's point of view.
Yeah.
If it's not, God help you, because the people they're going to come after you.
It's funny you mentioned climate change and COVID, because I said to Helen Weberly during that interview, I said, I reckon in about 10 to 15 years, people are going to look back on this whole transing children phase and say, well, I never had anything to do with that. Same thing with COVID. We had, ironically, the COVID inquiry in the UK today, where various stupid findings have been found. But now, 5 years after COVID, people are like, oh no, I never advocated for mandatory vaccinations of experimental gene therapies and so on. I said, I think the same thing will happen with this.
And put people out of work and ended livelihoods. And then on the climate change, according to some of those reports, you look back 15 or 20 years ago, we're all supposed to be underwater at this point in time.
Snow.
The world's supposed to be over. Meanwhile, people on both sides of the Atlantic are suffering huge electric prices, energy prices. You've got some of the most oil, as the president pointed out, in the North Sea, totally off limits to drilling because of this wacko science. So this is what happens when your science, your quote-unquote science, doesn't support the left's point of view. You're just taken to the woodshed. And you've seen it, by the way, the Trump administration, they tried to roll back many things that the Biden administration did over the 4 years. And people forget, President Trump was elected for a lot of reasons, but the main one was people felt this country was out of control. in a number of different ways. And he came in here and he promised he was going to do the things he's doing, and that's why you see people respond to him.
Yeah, and by the way, just for clarity, before people watching this, shout at the TV calling you or I a bigot, you and me a bigot, I don't care what adult trans people do. If you want to go and chop your genitals off, or you want to live your life as a woman or a man, you do you. Up to you. Just keep yourself to yourself. That's fine. I'm a libertarian really at heart. My issue comes with children. And we've seen now from this HHS report from Robert RFK Jr. that he says, quote, there are significant long-term and often ignored effects of puberty blockers that cause permanent harm. So that's my concern, the children. And now we know this from this peer-reviewed study.
Peer-reviewed is important.
Peer-reviewed.
Yeah.
So do you not think now the White House, HSS, Kennedy will be, I don't know, maybe they'd like to know about Helen Weberly, this British doctor. She's setting up camp here. As I said, she's coming after American kids.
Yeah, well, we'll see. This is an issue that the president, his entire administration, has not shied away from pointing out their differences on the point of view. It's an issue that resonated with a lot of parents across this country, especially as you get beyond that and you have men in women's sports and just the fundamental unfairness that that leads to. So this is a broader debate. It's one where, even on the left, by the way, Gavin Newsom, you saw him back in March walk away from some of these views he's had because he understands that this is not a winner with the American public. Yeah. And the left has a lot of things where they're just seen as wildly out to lunch with the middle of this country, not even the middle of this country, most of this country. This is one of them where they're going to have to get right or they're never going to get elected again.
Do you think the people such as Gavin Newsom, do you think the electorate will remember or forget his kind of antics and his views on things when it comes to 2028, assuming he's the Democrat nominee? He may not be, but
well, California's already got some of the highest electric prices, some of the highest taxes, some of the highest places to live. So he's got a whole lot of baggage he's carrying into this election. I'll give the guy credit, though. He's being transparent about the fact that he wants to run, and based on the complete lack of other contenders on that bench, he's probably got a clean shot at it. But yeah, he's got a whole lot of skeletons in his closet he's going to have to carry into that election.
I know we're a few years out, but final question to you: who are going to be the runners and riders in 28? Dem nominee and Republican nominee. Vance, Newsom.
Well, Vance is the early front runner right now, but then on the Democratic side, that's where all the fireworks are going to be, because you're going to see this wild rush to the left. You're going to see that mayor up in New York City, a communist. He's going to try. Someone like him is going to try and run. And honestly, the energy's there, so they better be careful. They better watch out.
Mamdani, he's in the White House tomorrow.
Should be electric.
Why is Trump meeting him tomorrow?
Well, Trump's a New Yorker. I think people, look, whatever your political difference is, I think people expect you to these be able to sit down and have a conversation like this. Yeah. Where it goes, who knows? It should be good TV.
Yeah, definitely. Colin, thank you so much. Appreciate your company. Colin Reid, Republican strategist. gbnews.com/your say. Should the United States government tell Helen Weberly, sorry, you ain't setting up camp here in America? We'll keep a keen eye on that. Coming up next on The Late Show Live.
That vehicle you're following is not it. It's turning left at that stoplight you were at. We're behind it right now.
I'll bring you my extended special report from inside America's immigration enforcement operation. We arrested 8 illegals and an international cocaine smuggler. A very productive morning, but also ahead.
I love our farmers. As you know, in our tax bill, we have a clause that's very important. We were losing a lot of farms to the banks.
Big breaking news tonight. 7 in 10 British farmers now say earning a living has never been tougher. Is this the moment the UK should start taking some tips maybe from America? This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Late Show Live. Let's get stuck into some Your Says very quickly. Tim, good evening. You said Starmer wants to land grab from farmers of the UK. That's why he's making life for farmers horrendous with the inheritance taxes. Howard, the ex-Labour supporter, never again. That is your username. Love it. You said the BBC are infiltrated by far-left activists and should be investigated and cleared out immediately. Otherwise, it will be the end of the BBC. And Shelley, you've said, Ben, I called you Super Dad. Don't forget it. Shelley, you're being very generous. I don't think I'm Super Dad just for being, acknowledging the biological facts that boys, males can't have kids. But thank you, Shelley. I appreciate your support. Right, breaking in the last few minutes. GB News can reveal that 6 in 10 farmers in the UK consider their farm to be at financial risk because of supermarket buying behaviour, with 7 in 10 saying making a living now through farming has never been harder. The stark revelation comes at an already difficult time for farmers who are facing an increase to inheritance tax, of course, dubbed the family farms tax, which will see agricultural assets worth more than £1 million, most of them taxed at a rate of 20%. But in the US, they've effectively ended their version of inheritance tax.
We were losing a lot of farms to the banks because a loving mother and father would die and left their farm to their children, and they'd go out and borrow money to pay the estate tax, or the death tax as it's called, and they'd overextend and they'd lose the farm, and they'd commit suicide in many cases.
All right, so President Trump and America seem to be keen on helping their farmers here, but let's get more with the farmer and founder of The Farming Forum, Clive Bailey, who joins me live from the UK. Clive, really shocking research. 6 in 10 of you and your colleagues say that your farms are at financial risk and could potentially close in the coming years because of what? Supermarket buying behaviour. What does that mean, supermarket buying behaviour? Can you just explain in layman's terms for us?
Yeah, hi Ben. Well, I mean, yeah, they're shocking numbers indeed, but I don't think any farmer that might be watching tonight will come as any surprise to them. And quite frankly, I don't think it should come as any surprise to anybody who really thinks this through, that when you hand complete control of food supply pretty much to 4 or 6 large businesses in the UK that basically control the entire supply of food pretty much now, it should come as no surprise really that that's going to end in an abusive relationship where suppliers, it's a race to the bottom where suppliers are screwed down on price to a point where it's just unsustainable and they can't make a profit. And on top of everything else that's going on with farming, it's hard enough at the moment with weather issues and things that we know, that's part and parcel of our job. We know and we can deal with those, but then you pile in the political pressure and that, what that's doing to industry right now. We are really at a breaking point where we're really in danger of losing an industry.
Wow. Yeah, that's very concerning. It's shocking. Again, I say again, who do the government think is going to come and replace you, or what are they going to do with the land? I mean, it's up for conversation. But let me hear now from livestock and arable farmer Ben Aveling. Stay with us, if you will, Clive. Ben, good evening. Do you ever sit and think and wonder, you know, is all this worthwhile anymore? I'm up with the crack at dawn. I'm all the way working stupid hours until the evening for probably, when it works out, pretty much, I don't know, near minimum wage, I guess, with the hours you put in. Do you ever think, what's the point?
Well, I think every farmer has had that kind of attitude one day, especially when it's been as wet or as cold as it has lately. But you can't forget the fact that we're in this terrible hole with supermarkets is more often than not because the problems we have with imports. You have really high quality, brilliant standard of produce in the UK that we farmers produce, very more often than not at lower than cost of production. Yet our entire market is flooded with imported food that would be illegal to make here, illegal to grow here, illegal, you know, not allowed to be sprayed here, the food standards for the animals and welfare, etc. So you've got farmers in the UK producing a product that the local markets need to be buying, but yet when they don't want to buy those products because they don't think they think they can make more money off them, they just flood it with imports. And in some cases, and Clive will know all about this, they farm wash it as well by labelling it British when it's not, and taking our premium as well. So I don't have very many good things to say about supermarkets at all.
Wow. Just very quickly, in 20 seconds, farm washing. So what do? They get products from abroad and then try and blag it that it's British?
Pretty much. So this is all legitimately, it's all written down on the internet. You can research it for yourself, and I've got videos, and Clive's been campaigning for this as well. And they essentially get produce that isn't British, make it look like it's from a British farm, but there's somewhere in the small print it's not. People buy it because they think it's British, and they don't even realise they're buying it, etc. And it looks like it's from a little twee farm in the UK, and it's not. And it's manipulating buyers into buying something that costs the supermarket a lot less to buy in, and it takes our British premium that we work for and people look for.
Okay. Well, 6 in 10 of you guys, you hard-working farmers back home in Britain, say that you are considered to be at financial risk, which is concerning. Well, let's get a peek at how things are going here in the United States. Joining me live now from New York is Dana DiPrama, founders of For Farmers Movement, apologies. Dana, thank you for your company. President Trump, of course, you guys, just for some clarity for viewers, you've particularly been hit by the tariffs, right? Soy farmers especially. But President Trump has been mooting, if not done already, some kind of relief packages for you. Do you feel looked after as farmers here in the United States?
Well, I represent small farmers across the United States, and I know that they're still really reeling from cuts to grants that they've had since the beginning of 2025. I think that the tariffs have really proved more of a roller coaster and sort of a guarantee of uncertainty for farmers, where it's really hard to plan when you don't know what's coming. So yeah, small farmers and mid-sized farmers are really, really hurting.
Can you tell us, please, about your inheritance tax situation for farmers? Because in the UK, our farmers have just been whacked with this new policy. Any assets over £1 million, they'll be hit with this tax, which farmers say is going to cripple them. Do you have that in the United States? What's your inheritance tax situation?
So the inheritance tax, as I understand it, has really been like the ceiling has gone up. So unless you have a really, really big farm, I think they're only 0.3% of farmers that are paying an inheritance tax. So they're sort of $14 to $15 million, you know, per person. So if you have a really big piece of property, you know, if it's above the threshold, you're going to pay 40% tax on it. But that's for really the really biggest of the biggest farms. And I think that you know, that threshold has gone up, and so I think that's good for the really big farmers, but it sounds really good on paper, but technically for most farmers across the country, what's happening is that's not what they're worried about. They're really, you know, a lot of farmers don't have land to farm, or they don't have access to land. And, you know, I think the issue is that we really need to keep our farmers viable while they're alive. You know, so you could be very rich in terms of the amount of land that you have, but most farmers are really cash poor, right? We're not, able to make, a fair living. And so if you've got all of your money essentially in land, that's not going to, put dinner on the table.
Yeah, Dana, in the UK, the threshold is £1 million, but some combine harvesters cost £700,000 for starters. So, there's this rhetoric, this narrative that our farmers are absolutely living it up somehow, going on luxurious holidays. They're not. They're up at the crack of dawn, they go to bed late at night. And I think they worked out some study that their average wage now, because of that, if you all considered, is something like £30,000 a year. So, yeah, it's sad. But look, Dana, we send our respect to you, American farmers. Thank you for feeding Americans and us Brits, us refugee Brits, whilst we're here, and best of luck with it. Also, thank you to Ben from the UK, Ben Aveling and Clive Bailey, our British farmers. Let's get the thoughts now of my panel here in DC. Niall Gardner, the former aide to Margaret Thatcher, and Richard Goodstein, the Democrat strategist. Welcome back, chaps. Niall, they seem to be treating farmers this side of the pond a little bit better than the Labour government.
I think that's right, and it's very heartbreaking to see the plight of farmers in the UK at this time. And also the difficulties, of course, that many American farmers are facing. But certainly the US tax structure is far more beneficial to farmers than the British tax system. And the inheritance tax and also Labour plans to raise that tax as well will be devastating, I think, for the British farming industry. And I think that we really need to see a complete reversal of approach by the British government on this, remove these terrible taxes. After all, farmers really, their work, it's the lifeblood of the British economy in so many respects, actually, and the work they do is absolutely vital. We should be doing all we can to help them, but we're not seeing that kind of support coming from this Labour government.
They're also getting whacked by supermarkets. So if it's not Rachel Reeves having a crack, it's the supermarkets as well. You heard from the farmers there saying they're getting stitched up. Richard, who is going to be buying all these farms, do you think, in the US and the UK once they're gone? I mean, are they going to be farms still?
Yeah, let's stipulate that Dana and people like that are doing God's work, right? Putting food on our tables. The estate tax for a couple now, the limit is $28 million. It's every dollar above that. If you were to sell your farm, that gets taxed. Wow. In the US, okay? That's relatively new.
That's 1 million in the UK, 28 million here.
Yeah, it's 14 for an individual, 28 for a couple. But that said, the problem is we're still seeing consolidation, notwithstanding a pretty high rate, which is that large firms can outcompete small. They could use technology, which small firms can't purchase, and just the kind of the buying power of corporations up and down the line, from tractors, which again, thanks to tariffs, are much more expensive, down to they're dealing with the supermarkets. It's very difficult for small farms to compete.
Very quickly, in 10 seconds, do you think President Trump has farmers' backs?
They don't think so.
No.
I mean, yeah, he might throw some money that he's getting from tariffs back at them, but that's not exactly a good way to a business model to kind of plead for special treatment after he's kind of screwed you in terms of exports and costs.
I guess you could argue at least he's doing something to clean up the so-called mess. In the UK, they've just been waxed left, right and centre. The government's saying, yep, I'll have some of that. Supermarkets saying, yep, I'll have some of that. Nobody seems to be helping them. Right, on the issue of the family farm tax, this is what the government has to say. They said, we're committed to supporting farmers and rural communities. The UK government, by the way, this is helping families to pass their land on to the next generation. It's not fair for a very small number of claimants each year to claim such a significant amount of relief when this money could be better used to fund our public services. To fund our public services. The money gained from the inheritance farm tax will be around £500 million a year, enough to fund the NHS for one day. Yep, it's still ahead on The Late Show Live.
The US government has just released thousands of once secret CIA files.
I believe there is a government cover-up. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
Right, GB News has been investigating the assassination of former President John F. Kennedy, and what we've uncovered and the people we've spoken to could maybe leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. But also on the show tonight,
have been working on a plan quietly for about the last month. They've been engaging with both sides, Russia and Ukraine, equally to understand what these countries would commit to.
Is President Trump one step closer to securing peace finally in Ukraine? A deal looks like it could be within touching distance, perhaps, but to me it seems a little deja vu. I won't hold my breath. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Paul Cox, GB News superstar and comedian, is down the line from London to look at the papers tomorrow. Paul, good evening. Hope you're well. Let's look at the Times, shall we? The same front page really on all the papers, which is the COVID inquiry today. The Times headline reads, inexcusable pandemic delays cost 23,000 lives. I literally, they must have just pulled 23,000 out of thin air like they did with everything else during COVID, Paul.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm pretty cynical about this as well too. What I would say is I remember February 2020 quite well. At the time I was working in London and travelling back home, which is Hampshire, which is an hour away out of London, and we were taking it quite seriously in London. There was a lot going on. People were getting this COVID-19, but where I was from, nobody was. And there was this, what I'm trying to point out is there was this kind of misunderstanding of what really was going on. And all of a sudden, 5 years later, we got this kind of what do they call it? Weekend quarterbacking or whatever, that Monday morning quarterbacking, where people are looking back at this now and making all sorts of verdicts. Well, where were these experts at the time? The point they're trying to make here is that Boris Johnson got this terribly wrong, and if he'd shut down sooner and harder, it would have saved 23,000 lives. He might have done. He might not have done. Actually, nobody can prove this whatsoever, because the statistics on which it's built are kind of dubious anyway. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that Boris got right during the pandemic. A lot of people aren't for the vaccine. I was vaccinated, but what I would say is, if it wasn't for Boris Johnson, we wouldn't have got those jabs out as soon as we did. And I know, like I say, once again, I know a lot of people weren't entirely pleased with that either. But there was a lot of things he did do right. There were things he didn't do right. But one thing is for certain, nobody would have got this 100% right. And we've now made it entirely political once again and said that Boris Johnson killed 23,000 people.
Well, at least Boris came out of lockdown early in that December, whatever year it was, 2021, I think it was. But this inquiry is asking all the wrong questions. They should be asking why they said the vaccine stopped transmission when they didn't. They should have been asking why they made up fake advice of standing 6 feet apart when there's no scientific evidence for it, and so on and so on. Richard, what's your take on this COVID inquiry?
It's hard to make a judgment, obviously, this much after the fact about the number 23,000. I will say this. I think a lot of people around the world were looking to the United States and to President Trump for leadership on this because of the place that the U.S. held in the kind of healthcare world and all the resources that we'd had at this. And if you go back and look at his statements from January, it's China's. I give great credit to China. Into February, it's under control. There's not going to be any deaths. And you keep going on, and even after we knew that this was called a pandemic by the World Health Organization, he says it's miraculously going to disappear. And by the way, if you take bleach and shine light down your throat, that's going to help too. So I don't think that helped. Did that make a difference in the UK? Maybe on the margins, because I think the UK was that intertwined with kind of US science.
I completely disagree with President Trump on this, by the way. It's probably one of the few things I really don't like him saying, but he takes great credit from Operation Warp Speed, getting vaccines out into the US. Richard, do you give him some credit for that, even though I think it's balmy?
It's interesting that one of the vaccines was done with government help. The other, Moderna, was not. And they both got to market at the same time. I do think he gets credit for having kind of pushed away kind of the bureaucracy and letting the scientists do their job. Where I fault him is he left office in January of 2021 with no plan to distribute the vaccines. I do think that was a big problem.
Noel Gardner, I don't know why this inquiry is not asking things such as why are there so many excess deaths in the years after COVID? Well, what have vaccines got to do with it? Why are 5-6 million children now having speech developmental delays because of people wearing masks all the time when masks didn't work? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the entire lockdown strategy was hugely flawed. And if you look at the death rates in the UK compared to places where there were no lockdown, Sweden, for example, Florida, some US states, I would say the death rate was actually lower in places that did not implement lockdowns. And so this idea that Boris Johnson cost 23,000 lives by not moving fast enough with lockdown, I don't know where they get this.
They've literally pulled it out of thin air in the same way they pulled out the deaths out of thin air. If you get hit by a bus and have COVID, this is what happened. If you get hit by a bus and die, but had COVID, you die of COVID. Tick, another statistic. Why weren't they looking at that? Anyway, Thank you, chaps. Paul, thank you. We'll catch up in the next hour or so. gbnews.com/you'll say, I'm really over the pandemic. I'm completely over it. I don't care about the inquiry. It was asking all the wrong questions and a massive waste of taxpayer money. Stick around on the Let's Show Live. We're going to find out what really happened, potentially, to President John F. Kennedy. First, though, here's your weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Still cold out there today. We've lost most of the snow showers, but where we've seen showers through the night, things likely to be pretty icy first thing this morning across parts of eastern Scotland, eastern England, West Wales and southwest England too. We've had these showers continuing to feed down. They are fizzling out all the while, and many places will just have a fine, bright late autumn day with plenty of sunshine, and temperatures will stumble up into the mid-single figures, maybe 7 or 8 degrees Celsius, but the winds aren't as strong as recent days, so perhaps you won't feel quite as cold. Notice a change though across northern Scotland, thicker cloud coming in here with outbreaks of rain, and the winds have switched round more to a southwesterly. Now the winds across the south will be light, which means temperatures this evening will drop again pretty rapidly down close to freezing, but out west things are changing. The cloud is thickening for Northern Ireland and already into western Scotland, thicker cloud and some outbreaks of rain. That will lift the temperatures. It'll be the mildest part of the country, I suspect, through this evening. As the wet weather comes in and hits the cold air, there could be a little bit of snow over the hills first thing. As we go through the evening, as I said, it's going to be a cold one across the eastern parts of England. Cloud will steadily increase, though, elsewhere through the night. Rain trickling into northwest England, Wales, and eventually southwest England too. And again, a bit of snow possible up over the hills. But temperatures will rise as the wet weather moves in. We could start the weekend still with a frost across East Anglia and the southeast, and then it clouds over here quite rapidly through the morning, leading to a pretty cold feeling day. Rain and drizzle for many then to come tomorrow, but it should get a bit brighter through the day across Wales and then northern England, much of Scotland seeing some sunny spells before we see another pulse of rain coming into the southwest and Northern Ireland later on. Temperatures will be a little bit higher, still going to feel, I suspect, pretty chilly for much of the weekend.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. Tonight on The Late Show Live, extended unseen footage of my trip in Florida on an ice raid, and also the Ashes start imminently. Do you like cricket or do you love it? Hello, good evening on The Late Show Live. Tonight, shots being exchanged towards ICE agents. This very operation this morning just proves the danger that ICE agents put themselves in. Yesterday, GB News went where British cameras rarely go. I'd argue have ever been before, because I was granted exclusive access to join America's crackdown on illegal migration by riding with the ICE guys, Immigration Control, as they arrested 8 illegals and even a cocaine smuggler. Tonight, I'll bring you an extended report from that raid with new unseen footage. We'll also be cracking open tomorrow's front pages hours before the ink's dry and breaking the news before it comes news. And of course, we're live, as we are every night, in Washington, D.C., just yards from the White House, bringing you the stories America's talking about and that matter to Britain too, including this bombshell.
The US government has just released thousands of once secret CIA files.
I believe there is a government cover-up. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
Yes, GB News has been investigating the assassination of former President John F. Kennedy, and what we've uncovered and the people we've spoken to could leave you questioning everything you thought you knew.
Hopefully he'll become reasonable, and hopefully Zelensky will be reasonable too. You know, it takes two to tango, as they say.
Elsewhere tonight, could Ukraine be on the brink of peace finally? Because the US is now stepping in directly, sending officials to try and seal the deal. But is this a breakthrough or a gamble maybe that could go badly wrong? And there's always plenty of hot air at the COP climate summits, but tonight, for once, it wasn't just the speeches causing the heat. I'm Ben Leo, this is The Late Show Live, and welcome to the second hour where we've got all the stories you'll be talking about much later today, more debates and 0 ad breaks. Don't go anywhere. Righto, yesterday GB News went where British cameras almost never go, I argue have never been before, inside America's war on illegal migration. I had exclusive access riding with ICE as they swept up 8 illegal immigrants and even a cocaine trafficker. Tonight I can bring you the extended report with new, never before seen footage from inside the raid. So it's 4 in the morning here in southwest Florida. Behind me now, the guys from ICE and the local sheriff's department here in Hendry County are getting ready for this raid.
All right, good morning, everybody. Today we're going after a Guatemalan national. His name is Alicio Tutchuk. He's wanted in El Salvador for drug trafficking. The guy has been expelled twice from the United States under Title 42. Be safe out there. We already have a vehicle on site. He's going to call out the radio, or call on the radio whenever he sees anything.
Well, thank you for allowing us with you. It's, 4 in the morning now in southwest Florida. Just tell us where we're going.
Our plan is we have some intel on him. We've done some investigation on him. Our plan is to try to locate him, bring him into custody, remove him from our country, and send him back to his authorities.
Okay, so he's a massive time coke smuggler, could be armed. I mean, Alvin, do you get scared when you go on these types of jobs?
We don't get scared, we get alarmed. We prepare for the worst case scenario, and in doing that, just preparing for the worst scenario, treating everything as if it's a credible threat. You know, we just hope that we go home after we do all the things right. We just hope that we go back home to our family and loved ones.
Yeah. Who's at home waiting for you? You got wife and kids?
Yes, wife and kids, mom, siblings, father. I'm a human being just like everyone else, as well as my people. My people are sons and daughters, moms and fathers, husbands and wives. So at the end of the day, we just want to, protect the American people and go home to our family and loved ones.
Do you feel like President Trump has your back? You feel supported by the administration and the White House?
Definitely. He understands our job. He understands our mission. He understands the need for our job. When he ran on, partnering and supporting the men and women of ICE. So he definitely supports us. He definitely knows that we're out here doing the job. Sometimes it's a thankless job. We're targeting and we're going after the worst of the worst. We've encountered everything you can think of. We just did Operation Criminal Return, where we just went after 300 or so sex offenders. We're going after people with egregious crimes, violent crimes, assaults, sexual batteries. We're going after traffickers. We're going after human traffickers and drug traffickers. We're going after everyone, and we're encountering them. We're arresting them and we're removing them. So anyone that you can think of that poses a threat to public safety and national security, that's what we're going after. Wow. Thankfully, we're supported here in Florida by our state, local, and federal partners. Our governor, Ron DeSantis, is a big advocate of immigration enforcement. He spearheads Trump's initiatives. A lot of what we do, it starts here in Florida. I empathize with, my peers in ICE throughout the country who aren't supported in certain sanctuary cities or states.
Minivan or the little SUV, that's the only cars that move there, right?
So it's his house directly in front of us.
So that's his house across the road?
Correct.
And you're waiting for him to come out. Are you going to hit him when he gets in his car? Or?
Yeah, we're waiting for it to come out.
So at the 984 Citrus, I got 5 vehicles. They're outside that whole wall.
So there's units down the road, Alvin?
Yes, sir.
Talking quick, that vehicle you're following is not it. It's turning left at that stoplight you were at. We're behind it right now.
So we've just pulled over the car on the roadside. He just left his house down there, maybe a mile or two down the road. ICE agents surrounding the car with their vehicles. They're asking him to roll down the window and present his details.
Or we can get this done easy and quick. Right now you're making it complicated.
Is this what needs to happen in the UK with illegal migrants? In the UK, we put them in hotels, we give them bus passes, we give them spending money to go into town. They get access to NHS dentistry. In some cases, they get gym classes, they get taken to football matches. But here in the United States, day in, day out, operation after operation, people who aren't meant to be in this country. By the way, more than 70% of ICE arrests are people who have convictions or charges against them for criminality, some of the most serious crimes. These guys are Americans, they're going to be released. The concern is the other guys who are confirmed illegals. The main guy, though, that they're after, the Guatemalan guy, doesn't appear to be here right now, but there are other teams down the road still active on his case. This very operation this morning just proves the danger that ICE agents put themselves in. It's foggy here on the side of the road. Very, very dangerous indeed. It takes one vehicle to crash into the back of these cars here for something very tragic to happen. We don't know about these guys in the cars. Are they armed? There's been many incidents across the United States of shots being exchanged towards ICE agents, ICE cars and vehicles being boxed in. So these guys are putting their health, their safety, their lives on the line each and every day to tackle this illegal migration problem.
Correct. We still have eyes on another vehicle, possible with the target. The target is possibly in there, so we're headed to that location.
Yeah, Kevin, it's the one that might SUV, the one next door is the one immediately.
So, although the target wasn't in the car, you've got 3 potential illegals rounded up.
Correct.
They'll be sent to a detention centre now?
They'll be taken back to our office for processing. So we'll run some additional checks, run their fingerprints, take their photos, get more information, make sure that they're okay to come into our custody based on their medical concerns. And if they're good to go, they'll go into detention. Possible removal.
So just a few miles down the road from that first stop, we now have what potentially could be the target vehicle and the man we want, the international cocaine smuggler.
This is the second stop and on the attempt to find Tango. Unfortunately, Tango is not here. We found several of his family members, same last name, same citizen, country of birth, but ultimately we weren't able to find Tango today. But we'll continue our pursuit of Tango, our target today, who is again a drug trafficker to be wanted in El Salvador. Still apprehended 6 illegal immigrants in the United States, so we'll take them back to our facility. We'll run their status. We'll check for criminality, see if they have any crimes here in the U.S. And if they are, we'll process them for removal from the United States.
So that guy there shouting out his van saying, "Leave the man alone, leave the man alone."
Yeah.
But they don't understand who you're after. You could have had Tango here. You could have had the cocaine guy.
Again, that's their ignorance. A lot of times they don't want to know. They just pick a side, and without any type of information, that's just the side they choose to be on.
Yeah. Is it a high risk now that Tango will know you're after him?
It doesn't make it higher for him to abscond. He may move, but eventually he'll come across our radar and we'll apprehend him.
So we just saw with Alvin there a very small reason as to why these guys here, the ICE agents, choose to wear balaclavas to protect their identity, because they get abused. They're at risk of violence and attack in other parts of the country. So you wouldn't blame them. We're going to head now to a third address and see if he's there.
The target is still at large. We're using one of our local partners, 287G partners, to go ahead and try to make contact at the home. They're more inclined to answer to them and not us. So that's when these partners are important, and having the support of our local and state and federal partners to, again, try to make contact and try to make an arrest on that target.
And this is that important piece of legislation. Oh, here we go. So the third and the final hit of the day, another arrest, and we have the cooperation of the local sheriff here, the Hendry County Sheriff, all thanks to the 287G legislation, which allows multi-agency cooperation to ensure that illegal migrants are rounded up, detained and deported. So 3 hours after starting this operation, we're now into the third site. It's the target's home. He's not there. However, they're just making their 7th arrest, it appears, of an alleged illegal migrant. So Alvin, we've been basically doxed on the roadside. This is what you guys face every day. Cars driving past, people filming on the roadside.
Correct. Every day, we have civilians doing counterintelligence on us, letting the public and the illegals know where we are and to not come out their homes.
And Alvin, there's a picture of me and my cameraman Ben here, so we've been ID'd, we've been doxed.
Correct.
There's my backside.
Yeah, filming their horrors,
And it's captioned, filming their horrors.
Correct, yeah.
That's what you deal with every day?
Every day. We try to do our jobs, try to, make the public safe, and this is what we deal with.
And that's why they wear masks?
That's the primary reason we wear masks. We're identified every day, and then people are supposed to go after our families, our homes, the officers, so we don't do it by choice, we do it by necessity.
And here we go, the 8th arrest of the morning, a pretty productive, lucrative morning. This gentleman being wheeled out to be processed, detained and potentially kicked out of the United States. All right, so 5 hours in, we're here now at the detention centre. This is the cell where some of the illegal aliens from this morning's jobs are now being held. They've just been given a spot of lunch. They've got chains on their ankles. And they'll be processed and probably deported if indeed they are illegal aliens. Just to give you an idea of the cell, let's take a look this way. This is an open one. Concrete benches on either side. In fact, it could probably hold dozens of people, lots of space in here. And then, of course, some toilets and sinks as well. So this is where they're held before they're deported. We didn't get the cocaine smuggler we were after. You're still working on that, but you've got 8 migrants, aliens arrested.
Correct.
Successful morning?
Successful morning, and the day continues. On average day, we're averaging 20 to 30 arrests per day, as many as we can, properly process in a safe order. So, yeah, the job doesn't stop at this 8.
You think it sounds like we need something like this in the UK?
Definitely. I think you can.
And just as an update, when I presented this package, the shorter version, with Bev Turner last night on The Late Show Live, literally when I was on air, and people would accuse me of making this up, but it's true, I got a text from Alvin, the ICE team leader down there, saying, we've got the guy, we've got the cocaine smuggler. They picked him up later that day after filming. So 8 arrests of illegal migrants, plus the cocaine guys. That's 9 arrests in a morning well done, some would argue. For more content like that, check out the GB News YouTube channel. To do so, scan the QR code on screen now, or or visit youtube.com/@GBNewsOnline. That's youtube.com/@GBNewsOnline. Right, joining me in Washington to react to that is my panel, Niall Gardner and former aide to Margaret Thatcher, and Richard Goodstein, the Democrat strategist. Hello, chaps. Richard, let's start with you as the Democrat. What's your thoughts on ICE? Are they doing a good job? More than 2 million people have left the US since January. 525,000 forcibly removed, the rest have self-deported. Good thing?
Well, first of all, hats off to you for putting yourself in the line of fire, almost literally. So, I mean, that's not something that normal people choose to do. To me, it speaks to the fact that the administration is not serious about getting as many people as they can, because for all the ICE agents that you were traveling with, imagine if they went into a major construction site, if they went to a meatpacking plant, if they went to, a farm, if they went, I mean, there's any number of places and industries that rely on the back of immigrants, and they're choosing not to because they don't want to disrupt those industries. I understand it. Incidentally, I think the economists are saying it's because of these raids and what disruption there is of industries that the economy, frankly, isn't cooking on all burners. So I think that this whole mask business, U.S. police don't wear masks, and presumably they're arresting bad guys. And if you put these ICE guys, if they really wanted to get cocaine traffickers, they could go into any big city in the country. They know where the drug areas are, and they could spend, how many hours were you out with them? And they got one big cocaine guy. I guarantee you, they could go into any city in this country, and with those number of people, and they knew where they were going, they could get cocaine guys like one after another.
So what's the point of all that then? Is it just for theatrics?
Yes. I think the self-deportation is probably something that resulted as a result of all these pictures of ICE agents breaking windows of Americans, taking out 5-year-olds who are getting chemotherapy and forcing them out of the country. Yes, I think that's getting other people.
Is that true?
Of course it's true. I mean, when I did about the chemo,
who was getting chemo?
Absolutely. Look it up while we're talking. And I think that that's accomplishing a mission. The sadists in the White House love that image of people breaking windows of U.S. citizens. Okay, they have brown skin. Well, we thought they were immigrants. Yeah. So I do question. Look, everybody, Democrat and Republican independent, wants there to be the worst of the worst out of the country. They want violent criminals out. But when you say 70% were criminal, that's because they included anybody who crossed the border illegally, that without proper papers, illegal. I get that. That's not right. I'm not defending it. But I'm just saying, when Trump said the worst of the worst, I'm sorry, that's not what they're doing.
No? Yeah, I'm going to give a very different perspective to Richard's here. And first of all, I think those ICE agents that we saw in Florida on this depicted on the interviews that you conducted, Ben, those are people, are heroes. They're very, very brave law enforcement officers. They put their lives on the line every single day. And I think what the US administration is doing right now is a real role model for the UK and for Europe as a whole. And the fact you've seen the forcible removal of over 500,000 illegal migrants and the self-deportation of another 1.5 million, this is far more than the whole of Europe combined, multiplied by tenfold, actually. I mean, this is a huge achievement in a very short period of time. And they are getting rid of some of the worst elements, frankly. These are incredibly dangerous individuals, many of these illegal migrants, hardened criminals. And I think what the Trump administration is doing here...
Which says they're not hardened criminals.
Well, in my
view, they are. They're the worst of the worst. What the United States is doing right now is absolutely the right way to deal with this problem. And every country in Europe should be following the US model, including the UK. And in the UK, I mean, they struggle to deport even just a few dozen people from the country. The United States is deporting hundreds of thousands of, in many cases, monstrously evil criminals. And this is a testament to the determination, certainly of law enforcement, but also the determination of this administration to enforce the rule of law. Because if you don't enforce the rule of law, you are no longer a functioning, law-abiding society. And under the Biden administration, we saw 10 million illegal migrants come into this country.
Well, Trump reckons 25 million.
It's an absolute outrage.
Can I just talk about the rule of law for 1 second? Those boats that were blowing out of the water in Venezuela because they're supposedly transporting drugs. If somebody from Venezuela walked across the U.S. border dripping with drugs, we couldn't shoot them on the spot. That's not a capital offense, okay? And that's what we have a Coast Guard for.
But they can because they class them as terrorists.
That's what we have a Navy for, is to capture people like that. We don't shoot first and ask questions, which incidentally, when they've been asked to brief members of the Congress, they haven't basically produced the evidence.
Do you not entrust the intelligence, though? They're saying these guys are drug dealers. They're
I
transporting
say
coke
that
and
it would take
fentanyl.
nothing for them to, and they really just brief Republicans for the most part so far, and even to them, they're not giving the evidence. So that suggests to me, yeah, maybe this is another situation. We've had it in the U.S., in Iraq, in Vietnam, and so forth, where guess what? The intelligence people get it wrong.
Do you not? I mean, the voters, the electorate, as far as I can see, are supportive of this stuff. They're saying they're drug traffickers. The intelligence says they're drug traffickers. You go for it, government. We're taking them out. We're saving lives.
The U.S. public says yes. Get out the worst of the worst, but they are dead set. One of the reasons the Republicans got swamped in the elections 2 weeks ago is because they see the excesses. They see these mass people. They see shooting ministers on the head. They see, again, these people
shooting ministers and that.
Look it up. These are people who were protesting ICE raids, and ICE agents
I have to say,
shot them.
I do think that some of the claims you're making here are completely outlandish.
Well,
they really are.
This is not dispute. We've seen video. Maybe you haven't, but everybody in the U.S., for the most part, who watches anything other than Fox, has seen video of this pastor being shot in the head and injured with a pepper ball. Okay?
With a rubber bullet.
With a pepper ball, and he's bleeding. So you call it what you want. They're making a pastor who is protesting this bleed. So, and the public is opposed to that, which is, again, one of the reasons the Republicans got killed 2 weeks ago. They're nauseated by what they see.
Killed it at the polls, you mean? So can you empathise, though, with why British viewers watching this, and even Americans, look at what ICE are doing, look at the number of self-deportations, forcible removals, and say, especially Brits, and say, goodness me, I'd love some of that in the UK.
Yeah, 100%. I think British people watching that footage will be thinking, why can't we have that in Britain, actually? And this is what we should be seeing in the UK, the roundup of illegal migrants, the deportation. It would dramatically cut down crime rates in the UK. And so I do think the vast majority of British people would 100% support what they're seeing in the United States.
Biden totally dropped the ball on the border and on immigration. Totally dropped the ball. But again, I think, as happens, Trump has gone way past the point of where the public has an appetite for. They don't like.
Do you know what we do in the UK with migrants, illegal migrants? Have you heard?
I heard what your recitation of things was. That's pretty
What do you make of that? We get them hotels, they get food, internet, they get
just like,
gym classes.
The U.S. does not give welfare to immigrations. That was in the 1996 Clinton welfare reform bill. The U.S. doesn't do that, and I think that's because that's the popular position. That's kind of the right position. Taxpayers shouldn't pay for all these people, and if the UK is giving benefits like that, yeah, I can see why there'd be an uprising or an uproar over outcomes like that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you both. gbnews.com/your say. Neil, good evening, Neil. You said, I think ICE are doing a great job. I'm just envious that we have weak leaders in the UK that shy away from their duty to do the same. And Claudette has said, nicely done, Alvin. Keep it up, ICE. Alvin is the chap who escorted us around, the ICE team leader. Yeah, thank you for those. Still ahead on The Late Show Live.
The one I haven't done yet is Russia and Ukraine. It should have never started.
President Trump is due to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky after the US and Russia drafted a peace deal, albeit without Ukraine. Could the peace president be about to pull it off again? But first...
The US government has just released thousands of once secret CIA files.
I believe there is a government cover-up. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
Steve Edgington is here. He's been investigating the assassination of former President John F. Kennedy. What we've uncovered, well, what he's uncovered, and the people he's spoken to could maybe leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. I think it's the anniversary. Is it the 22nd, chaps, of the assassination of JFK? Yes, 22nd of November. Steve is here in just a tick. No breaks, remember. Back in a second. Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Now, President Trump has made good on his promise to release 80,000 pages of documents relating to JFK's assassination. The 35th president was, of course, fatally shot by, or was he, Lee Harvey Oswald during a visit to Dallas, Texas on November 22nd, 1963. Since that release, GB News has been working on a very special documentary ahead of the 62nd anniversary of his assassination.
And as soon as I turned around, his head just exploded. And it's important for me as a witness for people to understand it wasn't a fatal shot. It wasn't a third shot. It wasn't a head wound. His head exploded. And when it did, the brains covered the entire inside of the car.
Joining me now is the man behind that documentary on YouTube, US correspondent here, Steve Edgington for GB News. Steve, hello mate. Really fascinating documentary you've pulled together here. Why is there so much mystery still and, I guess, questions lingering over the death of JFK? Why isn't it settled?
I think it's because there was a huge cover-up, actually, of a lot of information around the JFK assassination. That's not to say that there was a conspiracy. I don't actually think there was a conspiracy. But there was this massive investigation into JFK's assassination at the time, and there was this thing called the Warren Commission, which released this huge report. And people felt that they hadn't released all the information that they could have released. And that's true. And even today, or earlier this year, the Trump administration released 80,000 new CIA files in relation to the JFK assassination. Now, people have debated what those files actually show, and I don't think they do show very much new in terms of who assassinated JFK. Was there some kind of conspiracy? But it has taken, obviously, more than 60 years to get this information. So the more that the government holds out, the more that the US government, over decades and decades and decades, have kind of kept this information secret, the more conspiracies have been able to kind of flourish around the country.
So, I mean, I love a conspiracy, and they always say the difference between a conspiracy and the truth is around 6 months, but in this case, maybe a bit longer, 60-odd years. What are some of the main conspiracies?
Okay, so the main conspiracies are, and the one that's most fashionable today, I think, is that the CIA was somehow involved in killing JFK.
Well, Bobby Kennedy Jr., his nephew, who's now in government now, he thinks that as well, doesn't he?
I don't know exactly what his view is. I know that he thinks there's a conspiracy around it.
He's blaming the CIA, I think.
Is he? Yeah, okay. Well, he agrees with many Americans then, because the argument goes that JFK was kind of against the CIA and particularly against the Vietnam War. And a lot of people, hawks in the American government at the time, wanted to go further into Vietnam. And the argument goes that JFK didn't agree with that. Now, again, historians actually dispute whether that's even true. So it's actually a really murky, complicated sort of picture. The other conspiracy, or one of the main conspiracies, is that somehow the mafia was involved because Jack Ruby, the guy who killed Lee Harvey Oswald, now just again, to remind people, Lee Harvey Oswald was the man in the Texas Book Depository who shot JFK, if you want to believe that. And he was then arrested after shooting a police officer. He went on the run, and then after a couple of days, he was shot himself by a guy called Jack Ruby in the police station. Jack Ruby had connections to the mafia, so some people say the mafia were involved. And the final conspiracy is that somehow Israel was involved, because JFK, there was a lot of tensions between the US and Israeli government over Israel having nuclear weapons, and JFK was very against that. And Lyndon Johnson, the subsequent president, basically enabled Israel to get nuclear weapons secretly.
Right, got it. So I mean, there's plenty of reasons then for people to want JFK to be killed, right? You've got the CIA. He was against the CIA. You've got the anti-Israel aspect of it as well.
And he was cracking down on the mafia, or at least his brother was, and his brother was the Attorney General. So the argument goes that because Robert Kennedy, which is Robert Kennedy Jr.'s father, was cracking down on the mafia wanted him dead with this connection with Jack Ruby.
And of course, JFK's brother, Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s father, Robert Kennedy, he was assassinated as well. So Lee Harvey Oswald, he was a commie, wasn't he? He was a communist, a Marxist.
He was a communist. He defected to the Soviet Union, and then he came back to the United States after being disaffected himself with the Soviet Union. He was also pro-Cuban and set up some kind of pro-Cuban organization in New Orleans. And then, this is another interesting aspect of the whole thing, he tried to kind of defect to an anti-Cuban group which had connections to the CIA, and this is where all the kind of conspiracies around the CIA being involved with. It gets super complicated. Some of these new files apparently show the CIA knew more about Oswald than they were first admitting. So Oswald had a very complicated political life. I think he was basically, I actually met someone as part of this documentary who knew Oswald at the time, by the way.
Yes,
and
the lady.
Yeah, the lady.
Yeah, yeah.
She's convinced
Really
that he didn't do it because he was such a lovely man. And he said
he played with her children, said he was a delightful guy.
Exactly. How could he kill someone? He was such a nice guy. Yes, so Oswald was a communist. He was also an anti-communist. He was a confused man who was a narcissist. He was an egoist. He read all these books about being a spy, and he wanted to be a spy. And he really wanted to either spy for the CIA, against the CIA. And I think he really kind of had a weird relation. It's a bit like Thomas Crooks and all these other kind of political assassins. It's not quite obvious where they sit. They're obviously deranged, and there's a huge level of narcissism that we see with Lee Harvey Oswald.
Wow. What do Americans think about who killed JFK? What's the consensus?
Well, most Americans think it was a conspiracy. More than 65% think that there were more people and more than one person involved in the whole thing, which makes it a conspiracy. Just 35% believe that Oswald was the lone shooter. And I actually did do some interviews with people on the street in Dealey Plaza talking about who they think killed JFK. I don't know if we've showed the clip or not yet.
No, let's take a look. Roll the VC.
Who do you think killed JFK?
I believe he was killed by CIA, people in power, because he wanted to get rid of the Federal Reserve Bank.
I think that it was a combination of the mafia and the CIA.
You don't even think JFK died?
Nah. He ain't dead. Look, there's pictures all over the place.
Do you think we'll ever get an answer, or is there a risk that as the years go on, the decades go on, it just gets murkier and murkier and kind of, just...
Listen, I think we've already got an answer. It was Lee Harvey Oswald. He acted alone. I'm sorry I don't believe in the conspiracy for all the people out there listening to the programme tonight. But I don't think we'll get an answer to lots of questions that people want to ask or want the answer to. So we won't get all the files around it. And in this documentary, I did interview people who did believe in the conspiracy, people who'd spent decades, actually almost their whole lives looking into this.
Really?
And they weren't happy. This is the CIA. We've just released 80,000 documents. No, it's not enough. We need the FBI documents, and we need these other documents that are never going to come out because it's so embarrassing for the agency, or they don't want to release certain things. So I don't think we're ever going to answer all of the questions around the assassination, but my opinion is we've already got the answer. It was Lee Harvey Oswald.
Lee Harvey Oswald. All right. Why do we like conspiracies? What is the thing with conspiracies? I mean, Charlie Kirk, of course, we were live on air. We broke the news that Charlie Kirk had died. I mean, I still can't believe that happened a few months ago. But even now online, there's so many conspiracies. There's the videos. There's people saying, well, look at this guy on his phone making a phone call seconds after he was shot. Look at this guy doing some hand signs. It just gets all a bit mad, doesn't it? It gets a bit mental.
I think there's a real distrust of the government. And that distrust has been earned in a way, because the US government, British government, governments all around the world have covered up lots of significant things. Operation Paperclip, you can look at all this stuff, particularly in the 1960s with the CIA doing all sorts of crazy operations trying to topple governments and things like that. They really kind of harmed their reputation. You know, another great example is the WMD in the Iraq War, when they said they had weapons of mass destruction, and that turned out to be false, you know, this kind of dodgy dossier. So
the contaminated blood inquiry, they covered that up for years. Haemophiliacs, you know, thousands died.
The COVID lockdowns, was that based on real science? Was the government really telling you the truth about the kind of consensus on that? We're looking at the inquiry today, maybe not. So I think there's a real reason why people distrust the kind of official narrative around these things. And particularly in America, where you kind of have a land of extremes. People like to go down different rabbit holes. People love to go down different conspiracies, and it's all good fun until it's not. And actually, in this film, you can, if you watch the film on YouTube, a lot of the people who've been talking both in favour of the conspiracies and against the conspiracies for decades have had death threats. Have actually, one of the guys had their homes like firebombed. He's convinced that.
By who? Randoms.
I don't even know. He's got his own conspiracies around that. He's like, yeah, the CIA are coming after me, or you know, people who I'm trying to tell the truth about this murder. And, you know, people don't want the truth to be heard. I think some of it's true what he's saying. Like he showed me some of the news articles from the 70s where his house was actually firebombed, and he's convinced that people tried to assassinate him several times. But another guy who wrote a book, Gerald Posner, a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist and historian, he really has debunked a lot of the conspiracies around this. He's also received death threats, and he's done investigations his whole life into lots of different controversial things. And he said the most times he's ever received death threats was when he said that there were no conspiracies around JFK.
Well.
So this murder has really kind of caused people to be angry on both sides.
Well, I hope you'll be right, Steve. I hope you'll be safe. So many interesting comments coming in on your side. Caroline has said, good evening, Caroline. How about footage of JFK getting shot where he throws his head backwards, meaning he was shot from the front?
Okay.
Firstly in the throat, secondly in the head, where his wife Caroline picks up his brain.
Yeah, so that is one of the conspiracies they talked about, and we do talk about this in the film, I believe, or at least maybe I can't remember. But so yeah, there's lots of scientific evidence around the kind of bullet hitting him this way and his head flying back this way, and it was meant to go through the back of the head. So why did that happen? I think it is all explained if you do the research. The scientists have looked into this. It is possible for your head to actually flip back that way because of the reactions in the body and things like that.
Yeah.
It is possible for that to happen. So I don't think that's legit.
Let's do two more. Boko said JFK used Frank Sinatra to get his mafia friends to influence the unions into voting for him. Then, once elected, turned his back on Sinatra and refused to have him at the White House.
I think there is something in that. Not in Sinatra. I don't believe in that. But in the 1960 election in which JFK won, I think was a stolen election. People talk about stolen elections. There was lots of corruption in Illinois, lots of corruption in Texas. I think Nixon should have won that election and the Democrats stole it.
And the last one, Libby has said, the US government created the term conspiracy theory after JFK's assassination to shut down the rumours. I find that very interesting. Is that true?
I don't know about that. That's possible. I have to look that up. But I don't know. I think, look, there are lots of conspiracies, and you've got to choose one, right? Like, some people think it's the CIA, the mafia, Israel. There's lots of other conspiracies. They can't all be true. So, undoubtedly, these are conspiracy theories.
Did we land on the moon?
Yes.
Is the Earth flat?
No.
Good man. Reality. Andrew has said, Andrew Manley. Hello, Andrew. Hope you're well, mate. You said, good to see Steve Edgington in the studio, having seen him from London many times. I shall be watching his documentary imminently. And Claudette's replied, yes, me too. Fascinating stuff from Stephen, as usual. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Stephen. And you can watch Stephen's documentary in full on the GB News YouTube channel. To do so, scan the QR code on screen now. And if you don't know how to do that, if you're like my mum, get your phone out, get your camera out, and take a picture of the QR code, and a small yellow link normally will appear just at the bottom. You click it with your finger, or just do it the normal way. Visit youtube.com/@GBNewsOnline. youtube.com/@GBNewsOnline. Right, still ahead on the Late Show Live. Migrants will be barred from claiming benefits in the UK until they've been granted British citizenship. That's under new plans, of course, revealed by the Home Office. But also tonight,
I can summarise my findings of the response as too little, too late.
well, the totally pointless, utterly stupidly expensive COVID inquiry has found today that lockdowns could have been avoided entirely and that the UK did too little, too late. Well, tell us something we didn't know already, right? Let's get your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Still cold out there today. We've lost most of the snow showers, but where we've seen showers through the night, things likely to be pretty icy first thing this morning across parts of eastern Scotland, eastern England, West Wales and southwest England too. We've had these showers continuing to feed down. They are fizzling out all the while, and many places will just have a fine, bright late autumn day with plenty of sunshine, and temperatures will stumble up into the mid-single figures, maybe 7 or 8 degrees Celsius, but the winds aren't as strong as recent days, so perhaps you won't feel quite as cold. Notice a change though across northern Scotland, thicker cloud coming in here with outbreaks of rain, and the winds have switched round more to a southwesterly. Now the winds across the south will be light, which means temperatures this evening will drop again pretty rapidly down close to freezing, but out west things are changing. The cloud is thickening for Northern Ireland and already into western Scotland, thicker cloud and some outbreaks of rain. That will lift the temperatures. It'll be the mildest part of the country, I suspect, through this evening. As the wet weather comes in and hits the cold air, there could be a little bit of snow over the hills first thing. As we go through the evening, as I said, it's going to be a cold one across the eastern parts of England. Cloud will steadily increase, though, elsewhere through the night. Rain trickling into northwest England, Wales, and eventually southwest England too. And again, a bit of snow possible up over the hills. But temperatures will rise as the wet weather moves in. We could start the weekend still with a frost across East Anglia and the southeast, and then it clouds over here quite rapidly through the morning, leading to a pretty cold feeling day. Rain and drizzle for many then to come tomorrow, but it should get a bit brighter through the day across Wales and then northern England, much of Scotland seeing some sunny spells before we see another pulse of rain coming into the southwest and Northern Ireland later on. Temperatures will be a little bit higher, still going to feel, I suspect, pretty chilly for much of the weekend.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. One more email on JFK from Terry. You said shortly before his death he'd expressed a wish to share info with Russia. The CIA would not have welcomed this. Info relating to UFOs, you say, Terry. You think he was sharing information about aliens and little green men? Richard, what's your take on the whole JFK thing? Is it the anniversary on the 22nd?
Correct.
And
I just think that JFK assassination was such a huge inflection point for the United States and arguably for the world that people just can't believe it was one loser like Oswald that single-handedly, as I said, I'm in Dallas in Dealey Plaza in that Texas School Book Depository. It's a museum now. I've looked out that window. He didn't have to be a brilliant shot to do what Oswald did, and 62 years later, the notion that somehow they're going to find new evidence to kind of shed light on this strikes me as a little rich.
No, did you ever get any inside info from your old boss, Margaret Thatcher? Was she?
I'm afraid not. Afraid not. And you know, my view is just let JFK rest in peace. And you know, he was a truly, I think, original, visionary U.S. president, a very inspiring president. Let's respect his memory.
Well, it is his nephew, actually, Bobby Kennedy Jr., who's now the Health and Human Services Secretary. He's in Trump's cabinet. He's the one who says CIA killed him. So, yeah, don't know. Who knows? I'd like to believe the alien route. I'm a big alien believer. Call me a bit naive, but there we go. Right, let's move on to more serious matters. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is due to speak to President Trump after the US presented Ukraine with a draft peace plan to end the war with Russia. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt revealed the US has been working on the plan for the last month.
Special Envoy Witkoff, Marco Rubio, have been working on a plan quietly for about the last month. They've been engaging with both sides, Russia and Ukraine, equally to understand what these countries would commit to in order to see a lasting and durable peace. So they have been engaged with both sides, and these talks are continuing. As always, I'm not going to litigate the details of this plan as it's ongoing and it's in flux, but the president supports this plan. It's a good plan for both Russia and Ukraine, and we believe that it should be acceptable to both sides.
So I guess the devil is in the detail. Well, this plan would see Russia given the entire Donbass region and Crimea and reintroduced, well, I guess they already control Crimea, don't they? And reintroduced into the G7, making it, of course, the G8 again. Ukraine would also be required to cut the size of its military by half. Is the Russia-Ukraine peace deal within reach, Richard?
You said earlier in the show, don't hold my breath. I'm in that camp. Look, this is Putin's wish list. I mean, and it hasn't changed, and it's pure capitulation. And as you know, because you follow things so closely, Witkoff is very much on the outs, not just with the Europeans who smell a rat, who really don't think that he's kind of dealing on the up and up, and frankly, doesn't have the knowledge. This is a real estate guy. What does he know about international relations and so forth? And I'm talking about Witkoff, and let's put Gaza aside, because honestly, I'm skeptical whether that's a peace that's going to hold. Yes, we've had an exchange of hostages. Gaza now, I mean, Hamas now controls a big piece of that territory. I don't think that's a great outcome right now. But I think Witkoff, even within the State Department, is somebody who people are skeptical of, that he's somehow gone off on a lark and that he's given Putin kind of whatever he was looking for. And I don't think the Ukrainians or the Europeans are going to be happy with this. My bet is that when the dust settles, we won't have a peace deal.
Yeah, and Ukraine, of course, weren't involved in these latest rounds of talks now. But what's the alternative then? We just keep on going? We keep on seeing these kids slaughtered in trenches and killed by drones and blown up? I mean,
well, that's a good question. I'm certainly, you know, and President Trump is 100% committed to ending the war, but this deal is not the way to do it because Vladimir Putin, as we all know, is a complete snake. Can't be trusted. The Ukrainians were not involved in the drawing up of these 28 points, and you can't have a peace plan without Ukrainian involvement. And a lot of the proposals in this plan are completely unacceptable to the Ukrainians. And I think that we need to see a peace agreement that is drawn up that includes Ukrainian input, actually. And I cannot see the Ukrainians agreeing to many of the recommendations. So
what happens then? It collapses again, and what? We have another 6 months of killing?
Well, I think the war is going to continue until the Russians are willing to make some concessions here. Really, that's the reality, because the Russians are not in a position to dictate the terms here. Yeah. They're not in a position, and the United States should not in any way be granting concessions to the Russians.
Well, and also, Richard, maybe the likes of Turkey and Germany and the rest of Europe should stop buying gas still from Russia if they care that much about it.
Exactly, 100% right. Stop buying Russian energy.
Hungary seems to be the big outlier there. No surprise. Got a authoritarian in control, and he wants to kind of belly up to Putin too. So I think they're the big outlier. Yet Germany's doesn't have clean hands when it comes to buying Russian fossil fuels.
Orban's excuse was, when he was in the Oval Office a few weeks ago, he said that we are landlocked, we are reliant on Russian gas because 90% of our homes, residents require it. There's another pipe going to Croatia, which they're asking the Croatian government to try and expand and get more of, but they said for now we're kind of forced to do it, they've got no option. Is that a good enough excuse now?
I think, Hungary, and of course Orban's a strong ally of the United States, but they need to start buying US energy, reducing their dependence upon Russia, and also cutting off ties from China as well.
Yeah, they're also paying €1 million a day in fines to the EU to refuse to take any so-called refugees and asylum seekers. Many people praise Orban for that. But right, still ahead on The Late Show Live. Absolute chaos at COP30 as fire tears through a conference hall, sending delegates fleeing from the scene. I don't think Ed Miliband was there. And by the way, COP30, Ed Miliband. Did you know the UK had the second biggest delegation from the entirety of Europe? Miliband, who wants us to be poorer and colder through the deranged march to net zero, he flew over there, business class, stayed at a £1,000 a night hotel, flew back to the UK, then flew back to Brazil on another business class flight, thousands of miles on a gas guzzling jet, thousands of pounds of your money as a taxpayer. Anyway, also tonight, the Home Secretary's crackdown will bar migrants from claiming welfare benefits in the UK. This is The Late Show Live, back in just a sec. Sorry for my little rant there. I just think Ed Miliband needs to be named and shamed when he's displaying such rank hypocrisy. Let's delve into some of the main stories on the front pages tomorrow. Commentator and GB News superstar Paul Cox is in London, and my panel here of course in DC, Margaret Thatcher's former top advisor Niall Gardner and the Democrat strategist Richard Goldstein. Paul, what paper would you like to look at?
Well, do you know what? The story...
Let's do the COP one, Paul.
Yeah, well, let's do
the
that.
COP one.
What do you know, Ben? I mean, how did this...
I'll tell you about it. Chaos has broken out at COP30. A fire broke out in the conference hall. Delegates went absolutely sprawling everywhere. The site had to be evacuated. And Brazil's tourism minister, Celso Sabino, has confirmed the blaze was under control. No one was hurt. There we go. There are some pictures now.
Incredible. It seems to be completely racked with all sorts of weird things going on at this COP30. I mean, it was stormed by native South Americans last week or the week before. We now have this fire. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I am slightly. But there is something weird going on with this COP30. Well, Ed Miliband is weird, OK? There's no two ways about it. It doesn't matter which side of the political aisle you sit on. Having Ed Miliband preside over anything in a position of authority is not good for anyone, I don't think. I mean, he's a bit of a joke. He's kind of the Ed Davey character of the Labour Party. He should kind of be just put to one side, and maybe he should get out his bongo drums and ukulele occasionally. But I don't think he should be taking part in serious politics. And I think there's a fair little bit of cynicism something sinister slightly about Miliband as well, because of the way he's drumming this stuff into us, even though the zeitgeist is changing. We are no longer, either in the US or in the UK, in a position to foot the bill for this stuff. We have so much going on that, and it would change the planet so little if we did this, and also, by the way, drive all the economies involved into the ground, that it's just not worth it. I'm surprised that Ed Miliband's still in position, Ben.
Richard, of course, President Trump, anti-net zero, pro-drill, baby drill. That's the right decision, isn't it? Your GDP, I think the last quarter was something like 3.5%, compared to the UK's of 0.1%. Am I right with that GDP figure? Richard?
Well, look, it's a couple things about this fire, if I can say it. It's a bit of a metaphor, because fires, we saw them in California and we've seen them elsewhere around the world, thanks to climate change, are becoming more and more and more of a threat.
Can I stop you there? Sorry to interject. There was a report the other day saying that the talk about, the rhetoric about increased fires and wildfires and the world's burning more than ever before was actually, it's been debunked by the latest peer-reviewed study.
I think it's been debunked in the sense that it's all climate change. I think it's partly climate change. A lot of it is in terms of development and so forth. But I think we can agree that people 40, 35 and under think that climate change is real. Donald Trump thinks it's a hoax. And he's doing as much as he can to drill and have fossil fuels. And guess what? There's less and less demand for that, because China now is doing what the United States should have done, which is corner the market in terms of renewable capacity for energy and for vehicles. Right? The U.S. was kind of the lead way back when, and then kind of gave it the back of the hand, and now China is going to kind of basically call all the shots in 10 or 20 years when it comes to electric vehicles, like they're doing in drugs, and they're doing on minerals and so forth now. And I just think it's shameful for us to basically say that climate change is a non-issue and it's not happening. It is. It's indisputable. And the one final thing about COP30, what's amazing is, until this fire, they were making a little headway without a U.S. presence, which I think was pretty remarkable.
Well, didn't Gavin Newsom turn up and pretend to play the de facto president, Noel? Did you see that?
Yeah, actually quite pathetic, really. And I think COP30, the whole thing is a huge monumental waste of time. And no surprise to see, socialist hypocrites like Miliband, flying over for this conference at great expense to the British taxpayer. And I do think these whole events are huge insults, actually, to taxpayers back home.
Yeah.
And they are a huge waste of taxpayer money. It's all political. This is all sort of political posturing by left-wing elites on the world stage. And I'm glad to see the U.S. presidency has zero part to play in this latest circus.
Richard, you said that most under 40s, I'm 36, I think climate change is pretty much a scam. I'm not saying the climate doesn't change or humans have an impact. I think it's just been over-egged. I've read some good books from the likes of, is it Steve Koonin, Obama's former energy advisor, who basically says, okay, yeah, there is something going on there, but the doomsday scenarios that are presented are absolute nonsense. Can I ask you, predictions of yesteryear, even 20, 30 years ago, I've got front pages up from the New York Times, Washington Post, Time magazine. They all say, oh, London will be in a Siberian climate by the year 2000. Dozens and dozens of these predictions that have not come true. They're basically wrong. They're BS. Why should we believe the doomsters now when they've been wrong previously on every occasion in the past?
So the person who has rang the bell most about climate change was Al Gore, right? He had a movie, a book, and I think he didn't forecast anything like you described about London, but he said when we get to 1.5, 2 degrees above what had been before 1990 in terms of a temperature increase, we start seeing the seas rising. We start seeing crops basically changing and insects kind of invading places they weren't before. Not healthy things. Not healthy developments.
Al Gore, by the way...
10 seconds, mate, sorry.
Al Gore was kind of politically redundant when he started this crusade, and it saved his career. But it basically scared the living daylights out of the rest of the planet. I'm not sure we should hold Al Gore up.
I'm sorry to stitch you up, mate. I love you, but we'll see you next time. Thank you, Paul. Ed Miliband said the UK government... the climate crisis and protect our way of life by working with other countries. That's why the PM and everybody else and Prince William attended. Thank you for spending your time with the Late Show Live tonight. Thank you to my panel. Richard, thank you. Niall, really appreciate you. And of course, you, the viewers at home. I'll be back tomorrow night, midnight in the UK. Sweet dreams. Good night.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Still cold out there today. We've lost most of the snow showers, but where we've seen showers through the night, things likely to be pretty icy first thing this morning across parts of eastern Scotland, eastern England, West Wales and southwest England too. We've had these showers continuing to feed down. They are fizzling out all the while, and many places will just have a fine, bright late autumn day with plenty of sunshine, and temperatures will stumble up into the mid-single figures, maybe 7 or 8 degrees Celsius, but the winds aren't as strong as recent days, so perhaps you won't feel quite as cold. Notice a change though across northern Scotland, thicker cloud coming in here with outbreaks of rain, and the winds have switched round more to a southwesterly. Now the winds across the south will be light, which means temperatures this evening will drop again pretty rapidly down close to freezing, but out west things are changing. The cloud is thickening for Northern Ireland and already into western Scotland, thicker cloud and some outbreaks of rain. That will lift the temperatures. It'll be the mildest part of the country, I suspect, through this evening. As the wet weather comes in and hits the cold air, there could be a little bit of snow over the hills first thing. As we go through the evening, as I said, it's going to be a cold one across the eastern parts of England. Cloud will steadily increase, though, elsewhere through the night. Rain trickling into northwest England, Wales, and eventually southwest England too. And again, a bit of snow possible up over the hills. But temperatures will rise as the wet weather moves in. We could start the weekend still with a frost across East Anglia and the southeast, and then it clouds over here quite rapidly through the morning, leading to a pretty cold feeling day. Rain and drizzle for many then to come tomorrow, but it should get a bit brighter through the day across Wales and then northern England, much of Scotland seeing some sunny spells before we see another pulse of rain coming into the southwest and Northern Ireland later on. Temperatures will be a little bit higher, still going to feel, I suspect, pretty chilly for much of the weekend.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter